Hello friends, Jenkins here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, and in this video I'm going to be talking about what is probably my favorite hero to play in Dota right now, which is Skywrath Mage. So shoutouts to Budge the Butcher, who is a person who commented on the Underrated Heroes video that I posted last week on this channel. He basically said he thinks Sky is underrated, gave a bunch of reasons why, and I responded, I completely agree. I think this hero is absurdly strong right now. People aren't playing it enough, and the reason that it's my favorite hero to play right now is because you can play it like an absolute madman, and it benefits you. If you're running into the enemy's face and dying or killing yourself with towers, all of these like ridiculous, insane tactics are actually very beneficial for the hero, and there are very few heroes in Dota where that is also the case. You can be absolutely mad and feed 10 kills in a game and get 1 kill, and you're probably doing your job if you're playing it correctly. But in any case, I'm going to do a replay analysis of a pub that I played recently where I was playing for Skywrath Mage, and without further ado, let's just get into it. So the first thing that I like to cover in these videos is starting items, and on Skywrath Mage, it is basically as simple as it can get. I just go for whatever items will give me the absolute most intelligence, so that way I do the most damage with Arcane Bolt. And the reason that I have no regen, no clarities, nothing like that, is because my intent is to just kill myself to the enemy tier 2 whenever I am out of mana. The reason for this is because Skywrath Mage simply has too much mana if you build into 5 null tallies, which is the optimal build right now for damage and early game presence. He has too much mana to just regen using clarities and mangoes and stuff. It is just not possible. This hero will be very ineffective if you try to play it like that. So I just say screw regen, it doesn't do anything, I'm going to go for straight damage. And you can see how much damage this does to the Dazzle. Each hit, it's like a nuke from any other hero, except it's a 90 mana cost on an incredibly low cooldown. So one of the more important things about Skywrath Mage, obviously because this is a support hero, 4 support hero, which is used to pressure the lanes very, very hard, is that the way you want to play the laning stage is to essentially very slowly, methodically harass the enemy team down. And I shouldn't even say slowly, because this hero actually does so much damage that it's not even slow. But I really make it a priority to fight the early rune and fight as absolutely early as possible, because I know that if I have 4 Mantles of Intelligence, number one, the damage is more than a Null Talisman. That's why I don't have a Null Talisman. And they're all going to build into Null Talisman, so it's not wasted gold. But in any case, I know that there's no hero in Dota that can fight me. So I'm going to basically, from the moment the game starts, try to do as much damage to the enemy team as possible. In this situation, we ended up getting a kill, which is great, just because the enemy team completely overcommitted to us. Okay, so here we are at the start of the lanes, and there are a few things that happen the first couple of minutes that I want to talk about, mainly because the first couple of minutes matter a lot for Skywrath Mage, because he's a super snowball hero who can become a core if these minutes go very well for you. So essentially we have this scenario where I run in and just try to nuke the Jug as soon as humanly possible. The only reason I did that was not because I thought he would commit to this kill, it was just because, like I said in the previous clip, I just try to do as much damage as I can before they get to the lane. I just want to make sure to use my mana as soon as possible, because then they have less regen. The less regen they have, the closer they are to that period where they either die or they have to sit in their tower and they can't lane. And in both of those cases, we win the game. So essentially that's why I want to do it as soon as possible. As a result, the Jug takes a bunch of damage. He commits to my Darkseer. He gets the kill in the Darkseer, which would normally probably be worth it. But the issue is, he gave first blood on the Juggernaut, so he has to run all the way back to the lane. So basically, the lane is already won. It's very hard to come back from this, but there are still things that I consider very important on Skywrath Mage that I do want to talk about while we watch this laning phase. So essentially, the biggest threat for Skywrath Mage, in my opinion, is not going to be any other heroes that can slowly, methodically harass you, because there is no hero in Dota that does it better than Skywrath. If you're applying a harass slash sustain lane, Skywrath Mage will out-harass any amount of sustain. Skywrath Mage will out-harass any amount of damage. So I'm going to pause here because there's something that happens that I want to talk about. In a previous video, a lot of people questioned this when I was doing this on Sand King, and it's very important on Skywrath Mage. But in any case, the way that you lose a Skywrath Mage lane, at least from my experience, is if they commit to killing you, they're full HP, full mana, you're full HP, full mana. You can dish out a lot of damage, but it requires you to slowly use your mana, and a kill situation is not good for you. unless you have a better kill hero on your offlaner. But in most cases, like let's say this Juggernaut and Dazzle, they use Dazzle Q on me and then they spin on me. I'm going to die before they do. I'm going to come back into the lane. They can just keep killing me and snowball that way. So that's when I would play the tree line a lot. That's when I would make sure to nuke, run away, nuke, run away, nuke, run away, and really play the kiting game instead of doing what we did in this scenario, because they committed to us after they essentially had enough HP lost that we would kill them anyway, which is just turn and fight them. So I wouldn't normally do that unless it's like in this situation where they turn and try to kill us with very low HP, which is kind of insane. But here we have a very, very important scenario. I do this in every single game on Skywrath Mage, and like I said, this is the main reason that I don't have any regen at all. You kill yourself to this tower, you get to go back to base, pick up extra null talismans, which give you just an absurd amount of damage, and then also fills the entire mana pool. So look at my mana pool at 1 minute 44 seconds into the game, 780 mana. There's absolutely no way that that entire mana pool is going to be replenished by some clarity or mangoes. You're going to waste so much money on that it's not going to be worth it. You're going to lose the game just by virtue of taking so much time and so much gold to do that. It's just not going to be worth it straight up. So you kill yourself to the tower. It says that it gives 126 gold each, but this is actually incorrect. It gives 126 gold split between the enemies. It's just a visual bug, that's all. So it's about 25 gold each for the enemies. And if you think about it, in the time that I would spend walking back to base to regen and then TPing in, the Juggernaut would have killed plenty of creeps, and only 3 creeps worth of bounty would equate to more than that. So it's actually very, very worth it to kill yourself to this tier 2 tower, especially if you're a hero like a Skywrath Mage, where it would just take you so much time to regen. So here I have a rotation mid, and this is the last thing that I want to talk about in this clip. Basically, my reasoning for doing this rotation was that Darkseer is here, and he is doing something that it doesn't matter if I'm there because they are not contesting him. So essentially I was thinking it would be wasted time for me to go down into this lane. Perhaps I could get some harass off, but there's a very low trade-off to me going to this mid lane. Like, it's not going to hurt my Darkseer a lot. He's still going to be applying pressure. So I decided that this Pugna is essentially too far up. I just killed myself. I'm a fast hero. I can go to the mid lane, do some harass, and then walk to the bot lane. And essentially I was just paying close attention to like what was going on with my Darkseer. So I ended up killing the Pugna because he was doing some kind of crazy stuff, playing very aggressively, which was very, very nice. And then I walked down to the bot rune and just check it out. I really like to, when I'm playing Pudge or Skywrath Mage or a hero like this, when I'm making a rotation to the mid lane from the side lane, I try to time it around like bounty timings or around rune timings, just so I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. That way it justifies the rotation. Even if the person that you leave dies, if you can sometimes pick up a rune and then get a kill with that or something like that, it can justify it. It's just a way of making it less risky, essentially, if you're timing these things together. But in any case, I wanted to show this clip as well. So I kill the Pugna mid, pick up the haste, which lets me run to the tower a little quicker, then I kill myself again. I make sure that before I kill myself, I'm spending the gold, so that way when I die, I'm not losing anything. So I'll lose like 43 gold here. Ideally, maybe I could wait another like 7 seconds or however long it takes me to get 50 gold and get a TP. But I don't know. I was pretty happy with buying out and having to circle it. But it's very, very important that when you're killing yourself, you're spending your gold, because that is really where the big gold loss will come from. It's not from like giving them gold. It's from you losing gold if you're just constantly suiciding. But in any case, I wanted to point out the fact that probably in the early game, like first 10 minutes, I'll probably suicide 2 to 4 times, depending on how much damage I'm doing to the enemies and how much mana that I need to use. But eventually, you essentially just have enough null tallies that you can nuke somebody 2 or 3 times, and then they just have to leave the lane. And that's kind of the ideal sweet spot, like 2 to 4 times you're killing yourself, and then the enemies just can't deal with you. So even at level 2, with these items, with all of this int and magic damage amplification, you can see in a second here how much damage Skywrath Mage does. Even though Jug is a lot lower level than me, it's doing like 15% of his HP just to eat one of these nukes. So really on Sky, like, levels don't matter that much. It's more just about building up those early null talismans. So buying out super, super matters. Okay, so I want to show you a clip where essentially you can see the difference between the new Skywrath Mage and how it is played now, and the Skywrath Mage that people have been picking and playing for the last year or so. So essentially, for the last year or so, most people would pick this hero, max concussive shot, pick him to destroy the lanes with the level 1 and Arcane Bolt, and then run into a fight, burst all of your abilities, kill one person, and then suicide. That was how he was played for a year, and that was relatively strong because he was so good at laning that was worth it to have a hero doing that in fights and having really great lanes. However, now, with how strong Null Talismans are, with how strong the Kaya build is, with basically how much damage you can get on this hero without having very many items, you can essentially play as a core from a support role with support items, because if you're a core, you're going to go for these items anyway, and they cost just as much. So here we have a situation where I'm just looking for something. I'm looking for kills, which is much easier to do when you go for this max Arcane Bolt build of Skywrath Mage, because you're not just relying entirely on the Mystic Flare for your damage in these ganks. You can just keep Arcane Bolting somebody. So I'm just standing on the high ground, and the most important thing with going for this Arcane Bolt build and playing this new Skywrath is kind of understanding what your purpose is in fights and understanding what your purpose is in the game. You are essentially trying to be this pulsating damage factor that if you are not dealt with, the enemy team will eventually lose the fight. And the reason that in the game as well, and the reason that you go for Tranquil Boots on this style of Skywrath Mage with the Arcane Bolt max build is because you can use them to position yourself in a way where you're either not going to die in fights or ganks, or the enemy team will have to put themselves so far out of position to get on top of you that they will kill themselves to your team. So you're forcing the enemy team to choose between two shitty decisions. That is exactly why you do this, and I have a good example of this happening. So I'm standing on the high ground, and Lich comes up here, and I just use everything on him, burst him, he dies, his team runs after me, and because I have these Tranquil Boots, and because I know that I'm essentially trying to just waste as much time of the enemy team as possible, I'm able to run away and get to very, very close to my Outworld Devourer. At this point, I'm screaming that they're going on me, they're totally out of position, go for them. I end up dying, but as a result, Wisp and Gyro relocate in, OD gets a bunch of hits off on the Sven, Pugna runs away, and now it's this really, really shitty fight for them. So this is very similar to how you want to play this hero in team fights as well. You want to position in the trees as much as you can. You want to position as far away from the enemy team as you can, and just keep walking in and Arcane Bolting off cooldown. So you're kind of like essentially poking the bear, where it's like, go for me, come on, go for me, go for me, and then when they go for you, you just run, and you just constantly do this kiting game where the enemy team they're forced to go on you, because if you max Arcane Bolt and you have all of these items like the Null Talisman, the Null Talismans, the Kaya, you're going to do enough damage that they have to go for you. But if they go for you and you have the Tranquil Boots and you know how to play this hero in the current patch, you're going to force them so far out of position that it's going to be very, very effective for you winning fights and for you forcing the enemy team to make shitty decisions in ganks. So that is the main difference between Sky now and then, is that he's more of like a kiting, slow, methodical harass hero who's just forcing the enemy team to make shitty decisions. Before, if you had less items and if these items weren't possible to get on Sky or if they weren't good, you would walk in and you would burst. And that is still pretty effective if you are a Skywrath Mage who cannot afford to get these Null Talismans. Like if you're a 5 Skywrath Mage, you're constantly buying wards and things like that, it would probably be better for you to just max Concussive and be effective in fights like that. So that's it. Very simple. The rest of the game was incredibly easy just because the enemy team kept taking fights with more and more of a gold deficit, and generally if you have a Skywrath Mage on your team, you essentially have a 4-core lineup because this hero transitions into becoming a core with little items. You don't actually need a lot, and he still dishes out a lot of damage. As you can see, in this game, I have 21,000 damage. There's a 19-1 Gyro, and he only has about 8,000 more damage than I do as a 4 Skywrath Mage, just because that's what this hero does. And speaking of what this hero does, probably my top reason for picking this hero and recommending this hero to people right now is because he is an incredibly easy, flowcharty hero to play. It's not hard to execute. It's not an incredibly nuanced hero, and that doesn't make it bad. I think this is actually one of the best support heroes to learn right now, even if you are a support player. But if you're somebody like me who plays a different role than support, but sometimes you're going to have to play support in pubs, this is a great hero for you because the laning stage is the same every time, and the mid game just depends on whether or not you go max Concussive or max Arcane Bolt. And if you can do all of that right, it's an incredibly simple hero, and you're going to have a very high chance of winning games that you played on the support role, and probably a higher chance than if you were to play your core role, just because Skywrath Mage is genuinely that strong right now.